Awesome. Hey guys, all right, well, while everyone's jumping in.
Oh my God.
Okay,
I love this purple flower thing, you know? It's everywhere.
Mute. Right. Cool. All right, cool. All right, so while everyone's getting comfortable, I'll just open it up. 1 second, guys. Yeah, so if everyone can just mute themselves for now, that'll be awesome. Okay, cool. So thanks all for joining us. We're so proud to have partnered with Star Now to bring actors worldwide the opportunity to connect with top industry professionals, and especially in the hub, which is Los Angeles. If you want to stay up to date with the casting director workshops, classes, discounts, please head to our website and subscribe to our mailing list. For those of you who don't know, we created this company to connect industry professionals with actors. And it started off with our international program, which is a week-long intensive in Los Angeles for international actors. This has been great. And this year we had to put it on hold because of COVID. So hopefully next year, in February, we'll be able to bring that back. This has been a great goal for actors to look forward to something, especially in this difficult time. We do have a few upcoming workshops coming up, one with Gary, which you'll be chatting with him shortly, Lisa Zambetti and Mike Page. So that's coming up in October. And if you have any questions after the Q&A about that, you can just stay on and ask me and I can chat to you live. As a disclaimer, this workshop is for educational purposes. This is not a guarantee of employment. The mere presence of the casting director in this workshop or your attendance does not signify an employment opportunity in any way, shape or form. To ensure that the casting director will not be taking headshots or resumes. The casting director chooses to contact anyone, and this is after the workshops, they must abide by the rules of 48 hours, and this is by the California state government law. So the way that we're going to run this is we're going to save your questions till the end. So Gary's going to have a chat to you, and then once he's ready to open it up for a Q&A, you can type your question in the chat box, and then I will choose randomly. Not everyone's questions will be answered, but I'm sure most of the questions will relate to everyone. And we'll try and get through as many people as we can. When we do choose you, please unmute yourself and ask your question. But during the Q&A, if you just stay muted until it's your turn to talk, that'd be awesome. And yes, I'm Nancy Risk, for those of you who don't know. And with that, I would like to introduce Gary Zuckerbrod.
Hi, everyone. So these are always such interesting things because we are half a world away. But I have done a lot of searches in Australia, and I've realized some great talent there. I mean, so you have a history of theater in your country, which is, fantastic. It's the same thing. The United States actually has a very long history of theater. It was around pretty much from the second wave of settlers, from what I understand. And, Broadway was the center of it for years, but Broadway actually is a long street in New York, and it originally started in its downtown section and then moved up to its midtown section. So I do film and television, and I've been doing it for, oh my God, I just hit 35 years, I think. Yeah, I think I just hit 35 years. I started in New York, that's where I'm from, and I was really lucky. I grew up in a family that did things, like we were always doing things. We were either going to Mets games, or we were going to museums, or we were going to the UN, or going down to Washington, DC. But the one thing that my parents did that was incredible, when I was 8 years old, I went to my first Broadway show, and I saw the original cast of a musical that won the Tony Award, called 1776. And I think from that Saturday matinee, I never stopped going. And when I get back to New York, I'll see, well, hopefully the next time I get back to New York, they'll be open. But there are times where I make trips to New York and I see 7 to 10 plays, just because I love it. I love the theater. I love the craft of acting. I am not an actor. I have studied some acting technique because I wanted to be more familiar with what I was telling actors. And studying acting, to me, is the most important thing. I have friends that were professional musicians. They've since retired, and they always said the same thing. They never had a day where they didn't practice unless they were ill or traveling. It's a craft, it's an art. What you do is an art form, and art forms need constant giving, and they take. It's really an amazing thing, but I can tell, especially actors that I've known for years and years and years, if they've gotten a little rusty, if they haven't done it in a while, it's like my senses go off. And that's why I've taken some acting classes, because I want to be able to help them be the best that they can be. So casting's a little different in Australia than it is in the United States. The main difference is that in the United States, unless we really specify it, we don't expect anybody to be what we call off book. Is that the same term, off book, off script? So when you go in for your first audition, generally, unless it's specified, we don't expect that. I know in Australia you do, and I think, to me, the audition process is kind of a chance for actors to take a little bit of risk, to go in and do the best they possibly can, but try a little bit of risk. You have to connect with that role. That's what we're looking for. I mean, and that's what acting is about. Acting is about this role that's written on the page and a human being organically connecting with that role, so that when you walk in and you start doing that role, whether it's to the audition or onto a set or onto a stage, there's something kind of unbelievable that happens where you and the role meld. I mean, is that making sense, or does it sound too sci-fi to you guys? Because you all know, if you've done it, you know that feeling. You know that feeling in your gut that it's not just me here anymore. It's a synthesis of you and that role, and that's the objective. And when you go into an audition, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that connection. We're looking for that reality of you inhabiting that role. So preparing for an audition, you've got to be able to do, sorry, I don't know why I have not been able to shut off my notifications, but
yeah, I still haven't figured that out either. So
no, I had them off all day today. So it's you and that role coming together into a synthesis. So auditions. So when you go into a casting director's office, or you're going in for a producer or a director, the expectation is, there are a bunch of expectations. The expectation is you have come up with a connection to that role that rings true when you speak those words, right? Does that make sense? And the other expectation is that when somebody gives you a direction, you can take all the stuff that you've rehearsed and everything that you've done, and you can change that. Now, it's not easy, and I've seen actors who have to sit and ponder, a redirect and everything like that. But it's the same thing when you walk into a casting director's office. You have to be able to change. So I was really lucky. I got into casting. I started working for a casting director named Bonnie Timmerman in New York. And she was at the beginning of her career, and I sort of went along with her for a while. And then I left her and I got a job working on a movie that was shot in Los Angeles called To Live and Die in LA. And it was being directed by William Friedkin, who was an Academy Award winning director. He won for The French Connection, and he also had directed The Exorcist, which, you know, to me was like, I thought my head was going to explode when I found out I was working for William Friedkin. But I learned so much from him working with actors. It was just, and his words were so few, but somehow he just knew how to give an actor a direction. And it was, you know, it really made a big difference. So sometimes you get that again, and sometimes you don't. But the idea is, when you get it, you have to open up your mind to using it. So I came to Los Angeles. I was pretty lucky. After living in LA, finished casting. I got a job casting a version of the Twilight Zone series. CBS was doing a new version of the Twilight Zone series, and I got to work with all these phenomenal actors because we didn't want to be in a Twilight Zone episode. And then I had to start going out and getting jobs after that was over in 3 years. And while I was a professional interviewer, I sucked at being an interviewee. I went up for jobs and I was like, I was awful. So I called a friend of mine who owns a managerial training program company. And I said, what do I do? And he said, take a course in interviewing skills. And I did. And I learned a bunch of things in those classes that didn't pertain just to me, but really pertained to when an actor walks in the room. And after that class, that series of classes, I had a completely fresh view of what was making an audition work and some of the things that were making auditions not work. So what we're looking for in an audition, again, it's that synthesis. It's that you are connecting with that role. Now, when I first started in casting, there was no videotape yet. I think I worked on the first television series that used videotape in the United States. It was Miami Vice. We were in New York casting the guest stars. The producers were in Los Angeles, and the production was in Miami. And I had a video camera that was this big and sat on my shoulder. And most of the actors were stage actors, and they had never seen a video camera in their lives. I mean, the camera was this big. So, you know, I thought about that time when I finished this class of actors had to adjust to a technology that almost nobody had seen before. It was like brand new. It came out and all of a sudden they had to be videotaped. You know, people didn't know whether to go like this. People didn't know how far back to stand. People didn't know if they had to speak loud. I mean, it was, you know, it was all new. And the funny thing is, I still see actors making some of the same mistakes that those actors made. But the two words, rigidity and flexibility, are the two words that I came away with. And I talk to actors about this all the time. So you prepare for an audition, okay? You're ready to do, let me hear some of your steps. I'm gonna call on Clive. Can you unmute?
Clive, if you could unmute.
Not yet.
There you go. Okay, I've asked you to unmute, so.
Clive?
Hi.
Hi. Try to get, can we do this, Nancy?
Yeah, we can. We sure can. Go for it, Clive and Gary.
So Clive, Tell me what are the first 4 things you think about when you prepare for an audition?
Lines, character, the look to an extent, and the interviewee, how to try and.
A little hard to hear you.
And Clive, maybe if you could maybe take your headphones out because it's sort of giving us a weird sound.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now it's perfect. Go ahead. So please repeat what you said.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly now.
Yes, I'm just as I just said, the lines, the character, making a connection with the person at the other end, the interviewee, and to a degree, the look, also to create a look as well,
All right.
physically, to create some kind of character.
Okay. Now, how many people, just a show of hands, how many people have gone up on auditions for series that have been on TV for a while? Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Would you say, I'll give an A and a B. So this question is the A. Raise your hand if this works for you. When you get that audition material, the first thing you look for, or the first thing you look at are the lines. Raise your hand if that's the first thing you look at. Okay. All right. B is, the first thing I look at is to see who wrote the script. Great. So this is what I always advise. If you're going in for an audition on a television series that's been running for a while, you have an upper hand, right? You know who the characters are that you could possibly be acting opposite. And you know what the tone of that show is. Now, every single television series, I don't think it's different anywhere in the world. Every single television series has what's called a tone. The tone is not by accident. Before the show even goes into production, the creators have a tone meeting. They discuss what that show will feel like, what it will look like, what colors it'll be, what level of speed the actors will be speaking at. So, did you guys get all the CSI shows down there? Okay, so if you notice, CSI New York was kind of blue, the original CSI was kind of green, and CSI Miami was kind of a yellowish orange. They used those colors predominantly. It separated those shows out. And if you watch them one after another and thought about it for a minute, you'd see it like that. Also, the way that Gary Sinise spoke in CSI New York was very different than the way that Billy Peterson spoke in CSI Las Vegas. It had its own tone. So when you read that script, somehow you coming in as a guest actor or as a possible series regular, it's not that it's that big a deal, but it is a big deal because you've got to fit into that groove that show has created. So I did a show called The Last Ship, and it took place on a Navy vessel. And I had to cast all these actors who had to speak what's called Navy speak. So when you get on the bridge of a Navy destroyer, it's huge. I mean, it's big. And it's a sound well. I mean, everything just gets sucked in. There's all these beeps and buzzers, and you hear the noise of the engines, you hear the noise of the water. I mean, and so if you were to give a command, and I had to do this, I had to hire people who had to, if the captain gives a command on the ship, on the bridge, the captain says it, it moves down to the first mate, moves down to the next officer, moves down to the next officer, and it moves down to the next officer. They repeat that command so that nobody makes a mistake. And the reason I'm telling you this story is That was the hardest thing I had to cast. And usually those people who came in to read for it had 3 to 5 lines or 3 to 5 words. And I had to see more people for those roles than anything else. And we had a thing on the breakdown that said, do not come in for the audition unless you have watched an episode of the show or watched a scene from a movie that takes place on the bridge of a Navy ship. It's educating yourself. It's knowing what you're walking into. Because right now, where you are, that show isn't built around you. You have to fit in to what that show is. Or if you're going in for a movie, you can read that script and think about it in terms of a visual. Think about it in terms of what pacing those lines have. Does that make sense? So preparation. Preparation is incredibly important. 2 words, flexibility and rigidity. If you are flexible when you walk into an audition, if you can put your nerves aside, and that's not easy, really, it's not easy. If you can put your nerves aside and open your mind and open your ears to what people are telling you or what the environment is. So you rehearsed a scene and you rehearsed it this way. You know, you did it, you picked your point of view, you picked your angle, you rehearsed it this way, and you walk into that room and here's the camera over here on this side of the room. And I can't tell you how many actors walk in and go right this way because that's the way they rehearsed it. And you know what we get to show the producers? That. And I have to constantly say to actors, I'm over here. I'm reading with you, I'm over here. And here's the angle of the camera. Oh yeah, but man, I rehearsed it that way. It's not your job to tell me how to run my office, and it's not your job to tell the director how to angle the camera on set. You have to adapt. You have to be flexible. If I give you a direction, I see this all the time. I see directors give actors directions and they go like this. Yeah, I'm getting that, I'm getting that. And I know they're not listening to one word that's being said. Because you're in your mind, you're in your head. It's a tough thing. You drove 25 minutes to an hour to get to that casting director's office. You had to sit out in that waiting room for 35 minutes with a bunch of people who look just like you. And then you get your shot to walk into that office. And what do you want to do? Anybody got an answer? You want to give them the whole bag of tricks. You want to show them everything that you got, right? No? Yes? Okay. So I want you to start thinking about auditioning in how you present yourself in the best way you can possibly present yourself. How do you prepare yourself in the best way you can possibly prepare yourself? And so some of the steps, Holly, what do you think, just after hearing what I've been spewing over here, what do you think will change in your preparation?
For one, to shake off all the nerves, first of all, because when you're out of your head, you can give a cleaner performance and follow direction a lot better. And to really just listen to what the casting director is saying and to just look confident.
Mm-hmm. Great, great. And Brandon, how do you make yourself at ease in an audition?
I think the preparation would ease the nerves. I think if you've done enough homework and you can be confident in what you've prepped, then you can sort of walk in and be as flexible as possible, I think.
Great. That's great. Really wonderful. And Gemma, What do you do to make yourself comfortable while you're sitting there waiting to go into the room?
Not look at everyone else. No, I think just know that if you've walked into the room and you've done the work before you get there, then I feel like that kind of calms my nerves before, like when you're sitting in there and you're kind of waiting, you know, you're kind of counting down the minutes sort of thing. I think if you know you've done your preparation and you know you're walking there with the best sort of possible performance that you could give, I think that's sort of the best way to calm the nerves in the waiting room.
Great. Joel, are you actually driving? I'm not gonna, you're actually driving. I'm not gonna.
Crazy story, but I got caught out with the time difference because I live in Queensland. and suddenly it's like, oh, your session's about to start. I'm like, oh crap, I'm still like half an hour away from home. So anyway, I'm nearly there.
Oh yeah, so
I think this is a great question though. You know, how do people calm their nerves in an audition? Look, I don't, and I've, you know,
Pull over just because you're. I'm like the Jewish mother. You're making me nervous.
I'm 1 minute away, but I can still speak to you.
Okay.
Look, I don't think we ever truly get rid of nerves. You know, I think, and that's okay. It's okay to be nervous because we're human. That's fine. For me personally, I go in with, I fall in love with the story. You know, I get excited to tell that story. And what that does for me is it removes the ego out of the way. It removes the need to impress somebody. Because then you become interested in telling their story. And I feel like that gives me the flexibility that if they change something, it's not an insult to my performance. It's not them saying I got it wrong. It's them giving me clearer ideas on what their story is. And that's cool because I'm already in love with the story. So the more insight they give me as to it, I take that on board, if that makes sense. And I think that a lot of the ego, a lot of that rejection idea causes unnecessary stress, the need to impress. I generally fall in love with the story and I make that the priority.
That's great. That's great. And, you know, so many actors that I've asked over the years, you know, what was your goal in coming into this audition? And the best answer is always, I just wanted to make sure I know I did well. That's what I was going for. I wanted to walk out feeling good. It's funny, I did a long-running television series, and it was back in the day when we did do videotaping, but the producer and the director and a producer from the show would come into the casting sessions. And there was this one guy, and it was on for 5 or 6 years. And there was this one actor who came in, and he was perfect for the show. And he was always the second choice. So in the last season, one of the last sessions that we had, it was between him and another guy. And we actually called them back for a callback. And I walked down the hall, and his name is Brian, and I walked down the hall with him and I said, Brian, it was a great audition. You know, I have no idea what's going to happen. We're going to sit and discuss it. And he said, Gary, that's okay. I don't really care. I said, how could you not care? He said, I only aim for one thing. He said, the first 2 auditions that I came in, you sat there and there was no smile on your face. And he said, after that, there was a smile on your face every single time. That was the only thing that I was looking for. If you had a smile on your face, that's it. I threw out the material. I know I did well. Whether I got the job or not, that's all I was looking for, which made me feel like an idiot, but it was his key pin. It was what he needed to unlock, just doing the best that he could do. And, you know, And that taught so many lessons. That taught me so many lessons about working with actors. So I'm going to open this up now. Ask away. Ask what kind of questions you want to ask.
Awesome. Let's
Brandon?
go to Brandon, yeah.
Yeah, hey Gary. I was just wondering, what is the relationship between the casting directors and producers and directors per se? Is that like a sort of constant correlation that's going on between when you're picking someone that's right for the role, or do you sort of have the main control over that? I just wanted to, and I guess on top of that, have you ever had a situation where you thought someone was right, but against, I guess, like the board, they sort of chose someone else, or was there have you ever had any sort of difficult casting times like that?
I'm going to answer your question, and then I'm going to tell you my favorite story that matches that criteria.
Okay.
So the relationship between a casting director and a producer, or on a movie, it really depends. It kind of all depends on levels. On a movie is really a director's vision, and that producer hires a director to bring that vision to the entire scope of the movie. Now, there are certain producers that are very hands-on, so they get very involved in every aspect of that, and the director has to go along with that if they want to continue on that project. Television really is the vision of the executive producer. So the executive producer, it's their vision, what the scope of that series looks like. They hire the directors to fulfill that vision. And so when I'm working on an episodic television show, generally, unless they're directors that I know, I don't have any contact with them. I mean, because it's not like they come to the office to watch the auditions. It's all done by recording now. Used to be that the director came to the office and sat in on casting sessions. That doesn't happen anymore, usually. So it's about the producer's vision. And again, they have writers, they have a staff of writers. So some of the writers will write that episode. And if they're a giving producer, if they understand what that relationship is between the producer and the writer, it becomes that the writer has tried to write within the scope of what the executive producer has created as an overall. And then the executive producer can give a little bit of leeway sometimes in letting that writer make some of the choices in casting. But here's my story. So in The Last Ship, one season we were in North Africa, and we had to find a Black actress who was stunningly beautiful, a soldier, and like a missionary soldier. So she had to be tough and strong and had to wield a gun really well. And she had a love interest with a British Secret Service agent. And she had a lot of lines. So that's a lot of stuff to find for a television guest star. You know, that's really, and we knew that she was going to be in like 5 episodes, guaranteed like 5 episodes. But still, that's a lot of stuff to find. I mean, that's when you start looking at like movie stars to have all those, you know, or theater stars to have all those things. So I was reading a whole bunch of actresses, and the second to last actress that came in on the day that I had set aside for readings wasn't just good. It was like the Meryl Streep of somebody who could do all of these qualities in that role and stunningly beautiful walked into my office. And it was somebody I had never heard of before. She was kind of a model. I couldn't figure out exactly, she hadn't done that much acting, but she was like I mean, she blew my mind. And so my partner came, I knocked on the wall and I had my partner come in, and she walked out, and, you know, we said, thank you. And I said, look, make sure your agent knows, don't take a job unless you know, call me. And my partner and I were like, yes, we found, like, amazing. So we sent 5 choices to the producers, 5 of the tape choices to the producers, and they wanted to have a callback because they wanted to see this person live. And they chose 4 of the actresses and not the one that we saw, who was great. And my partner and I just looked at each other and went, no, we're not letting them get away with this. So what we did was we set up the 4 actresses. We also set up the 5th actress, but we didn't put her on our session sheet. And so we finished reading, and they made a choice out of the 4 actresses. They said, you know, she wasn't quite as good as she was on the videotape, but we've seen it wasn't videotape. It was, you know, we just emailed the auditions over. She wasn't quite as good, you know, on the room as she was on the screen. We really like her. And we said, look, guys, we found one other actress and she's out there and we kind of think she's amazing. They said, great, bring her in. So she walked in, and I noticed that 2 of the producers were like, recognized her face a little bit. And so they said, great. And she's stunning. I mean, she's just stunning. And she read, and she walked out of the room, and I'm watching 3 men and a woman on the couch go like this. And they said, okay, we're done, hire her. That was Jodie Turner-Smith. So, who is now becoming a movie star in the United States. So, you know, that's how arbitrary it is. That's the reality of it. You know, you bring in people and you think, I've got it. We've got the perfect person. And then they go in front of the producers and directors and or the networks and studios, and they just go, nah, don't see it. Just don't see it. And as a casting director, you want to strangle them, but it's their vision. We are all there to make their vision come to life, right? I mean, that's what you do when you write, when you're doing a play. I mean, if you're doing a play by Tennessee Williams, you're there to make what Tennessee Williams wrote become the reality for the audience that's watching it. And that's the joy of it. Or finding some new angle to it that makes it more relevant to a generation, but doesn't take away from what its originality is. So, okay, your turn. You guys ask.
Jamal put a hand up. Yep.
Hi, Gary. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, perfect. I guess the question is, are you still finding that there's a lot of stereotyping within the industry? People hear my voice and they think Anglo-Saxon, and then they see my face and they think Indian or Aboriginal or Asian or whatever the case is. And the two don't necessarily correlate in a lot of the roles that I've looked at. And are you finding there's a change in the industry where there's not quite so much stereotyping? Because I don't quite fit any of the criteria. I sound and can act as an Amanda, but don't necessarily have the look of an Amanda. So that's kind of been a bit of a stumbling block for me. I can do the corporate videos, but I can't quite pull off a Sarah or an Amanda or a Megan.
Well, here's the thing. The answer is, especially in the United States, you know, it's funny, I watch British television and they're kind of like a couple of years behind us in terms of diversity. We're all about diversity. We're all about trying to represent what the world looks like now. It's, you know, we're a global market, especially in the United States, and it's so important to the networks or the studios who make movies, but also the creators, producers and directors, and casting directors. We spend a lot of time working on diversity issues. Here we, as an organization, as the Casting Society of America, every year we do open calls for Native American actors. We really want to see Native American actors come more into mainstream. It's really become something very important for us. And we are constantly saying, you know, yeah, you wrote this role as African American, but there's a Native American actress that I just met at a conference of Native American actors, and she just blew my mind. She did one monologue and she blew my mind. Would you be open to me bringing her in and seeing if that works? And you know, a couple of years ago, it might have been, no. Now it's yes. Yes.
And I guess yourself as the casting director get to influence that kind of change in the industry, which is amazing. And I just hope there's more of you casting, especially here in Australia, because we're still such an Anglo-Saxon front, but it's not the reality of the diversity that is Australian.
It's not a reality, it's a mission for us. And you know, and actually we've had panel discussions, and it was interesting because I was in one panel discussion and one actor, again, who I've known for many years, he said, guys, I'm not getting jobs. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean you're not getting jobs? You work all the time. And he said, no, white guys don't work anymore. And every one of us on the panel went, oh, we've got to be a little bit more sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Don't forget, your country does not have the same diversity level that the United States does, or England. So
yeah. I think what is portrayed and what's actual is probably quite different. The diversity is there. I mean, my kids' schools, my son's doing year 12 and kids have finished school, and that's why I'm wanting to get back into acting now. I'm a bit on the older side, I know, but the diversity in the school, there's 153 different cultures in his one school. So there is a lot of cultural diversity, and within suburbs and stuff, you see that stereotyping of this is a particular diversity or cultural area and all that sort of stuff. But I think our media and our TV industry doesn't still portray that kind of diversity that the actual community is.
And so I always forget, your union is?
MEAA.
NEAA.
Yeah.
Why aren't they going to studios and networks and saying, we want more representation of what our country looks like?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that needs to be taken up.
Yeah,
and hopefully that'll be where the focus might lie. But I guess it's just infiltrating and getting the jobs and not having the rigidity, but more the flexibility that people are looking for in the auditions, where they like, oh, okay, we might not be able to call her Amanda, but we can definitely cast her for that particular role or that particular presentation.
See, and just know, it didn't happen overnight in the United States. I mean, this was a long haul movement. It had started really started in the early 1990s. And it took a good 15, 20 years to really start, kicking in.
Oh, I've got a few years ahead of me to keep looking and trying.
Well, except there's a big difference between the world now and what the world was then.
Things are happening a
was
lot
no
faster
internet.
because of social media and the internet and all that sort of stuff.
There
Yeah,
was
for
no
sure.
internet.
Yeah.
you know? So,
Alrighty. Well, yeah, look, just so you know, in America, they're so much more, you know, in tune with that. And that's why I left, because I wasn't getting cast much in Australia. So, you know, there's a lot more opportunities, just it's where you are. And you sometimes you just got to wait for those opportunities to come. And it is coming. Australia is becoming better, and so is the UK as well. By the way, for those in the UK, I know it's like 2, 3 in the morning. So thank you for coming, and just give us a wave so we can see who you are. Look at these guys. This is awesome. So thank you so much for coming.
all right, let's hear from some of the UK people. Questions?
Mladen?
Yeah, Nancy, this is correct. Hi, Gary. Actually, my question is somewhat connected to Jamel's, what she spoke about earlier. I was going to ask you, you and other casting directors in the US, do you watch and do you consider self-tape auditions from people outside the US for filming going inside the US? And if you do, have you ever cast anyone for anything in that way?
100%. I mean, yes. You see, here's the thing: you're not going to get a guest star role, because, you know, on a television series, you're not going to get a one shot. But if let's say there's a role that goes through most of the series, you know, most of the year, most of that season, or, you know, has a big block, yeah, absolutely. We've cast people out of the UK. The problem with it is, and, you know, it's always a matter of, do I have enough time to immigrate you in? Do I have enough time to get all the visa work done? And that's going to be a little harder right now.
What about other parts of the world? Not only the UK, but just globally,
Yeah,
how does it work?
I mean, I've done searches. I've done worldwide searches. Absolutely. Have any of you heard of the Kissing Booth movies from Netflix? So my partner and I did those. And actually the lead guy, we could not find him in the United States when we did the first movie. We couldn't find him. We were about to hire a guy in Texas, and I got a tape from an agent who had met this kid who lived in Brisbane. And the only thing on his resume was basically an extra part in Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And he sent me, I mean, I got the tape, I watched the audition, I brought everybody into my office in. I said, tell me if I'm insane, but this kid's fantastic. And we all went, that kid's fantastic. I called the director up and I said, where are you? He said, I'm driving. I said, you have your laptop? And he said, yeah. I said, get to a Starbucks now. You have to watch this. You know, got the lead role. But sure, absolutely. For Kissing Booth 2, we did a search throughout Spain, Mexico, Argentina, and Brazil for one of the leading roles. It's so easy to do those searches now, especially since, look, we're not having live auditions here. I'm not going to be in an office, you know, reading actors. I'm going to be in a Zoom reading actors, and actors are going to wait in a room like you guys are waiting now. And you know, you can call them in. But that's how casting is going to be done now for probably quite a while, until at least they've got a vaccine or something. But none of us are getting into a room with an actor. So the only thing that's the barrier is the studio willing to spend the money to fly them here, and do they have the paperwork to work here? But you're Commonwealth, you can work in Canada, and a lot of American productions shoot there.
Yeah. We have Max wants to ask a question. If you can unmute yourself, Max.
Hi, so I was wondering, so when you're seeing actor after actor after actor and going through loads of self-tapes or in-person auditions, In most of those cases, how long would it take for you to get that kind of gut feeling or gut instinct about a certain actor?
Sometimes it happens on the first one, you know, and sometimes it doesn't, you know, just as I said to you guys, if you're rigid, you can't win if you're rigid. But what happens, and casting, just like acting, when you're acting, let's say, I mean, for those of you who have done theater, night one, if you compare your performance from night 1 to night 10, or the 15th week of a show, it's not the same, right? You've grown, you've learned, you've felt something different. It touched you in a different way. The reaction of the audience completely changed what you thought it would be. It's the same thing when you're casting. You start off watching like 5 actors do it, and those 5 actors have done it a different way, and it begins to just change the way you're thinking about those words and about the actor who really should be playing that part. And then somebody comes in and does a performance that is totally different, and you see it from a completely different angle. Now, that might not be the right angle or what the producers have told you, but something in, as a casting or something in your gut says, that's magic. I want to watch that over and over again. So, you know, and that happens all the time. That's how somebody gets the role. You know, it's just, you know, it's a whittling down. It comes down and down and down. And then you just say, that's the person inhabiting the role the way I see it, or the director sees it, really. Because I'm there to fulfill their vision. And that doesn't mean that vision, when they tell me he's a white guy in his mid-40s who's got a sort of softness in him, even though everybody thinks he's a shark at business, that guy doesn't end up being an Asian man who just made the words pop, off the screen. And then you present it as a possibility. And then it's up to the people who make the choices.
Awesome. All right, Gemma has a question.
Hello again.
Hello.
So my question is, I guess, you know, where do you think the best opportunities are in terms of like countries or states? You know, is it LA? Is it New York? Is it London? Is it Canada, like Vancouver? So where do you think at the moment is the best place to be, or has the most casting opportunities?
Again, it's a numbers game. So the largest market for English-speaking actors in the world is Los Angeles. It's also probably the largest concentration of English-speaking actors in the world. So it's Los Angeles, New York, London, then probably Canada, and then Australia.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, that was sort of my question. Sort of, I guess where sort of everywhere sits, in terms of opportunities. And I guess the best place to be, maybe not at the moment, but the best place to be sort of like, for casting opportunities in the future.
Look, there were many actors who just weren't working here. And, Atlanta became a big hub of film production because it was just a heck of a lot cheaper to shoot there. And so I know a lot of actors who moved to Atlanta, and they're doing well.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it just sort of comes down to where like things are filming at the moment and what's sort of happening.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't pick the business where anybody said there's a guarantee of anything.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Work in this business. Pick that business.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Gemma. We've got David John Clark wants to ask a question.
Hey, Gary, how you going?
Good, David.
You were talking at the start of your talk about owning the role, both in your audition on set. Could you sort of give I have trouble getting that role owned when I'm in the audition. So when I get on set, if I've got the role, I walk in there and you've got your scene, the bar set and the actors are there, so everything works. And on screen, I'm the character, I'm the role, it works. But I'm having trouble getting that visualization when you're in the audition room and making that character feel that believable. So maybe it's my age, my ability to imagine where I am is not as good as a child, so to speak. So walking into audition, how do I make that that reality come out the way you do on set?
So I'm going to pose a couple of things to you, David. First of all, the reason you're going in for a role, it's because somebody looked at your picture and resume, or somebody knew you, a casting director knows you and says, you know what, he fits the exterior criteria, right? He's the right age. So it's not your age. He's the right type. So just the fact that you're walking into that room says that somebody wanted you to be in that room. So throw that away. Throw that piece of the fear, of the nerves, the fear, the I can't do it. Throw that piece away. They called me in, they want me here. So I'm wanted, I know that. So I'm starting, rather than starting from point this way, I'm starting from point here. Okay? I've worked on the material. I know the material. I'm confident in what I'm going to do with this material. That puts you up to point there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you can control. I mean, you can walk in and ask some questions if you have questions, like, you know, if this person would react that way. I wouldn't go for a dissertation in questions, but I'd go for, you know, 1 or 2 questions. And then you just do it. And that's all you can do. And you walk out of that room and you're either feeling good about it or you're not feeling good about it. But I've worked with a number of actors on this very specific issue by coaching them. And it's getting into that mindset of, I've done what I can do and I did it well. I'm done. That's what I can do. Does that make sense? Does that help in that?
Yeah, I guess it's finding that confidence in the audition room, the same that you have on set. When you're on set, you're committed, you're there, you've got the role, and your story's playing. So it's trying to convert that to the audition room.
What's taking away from your confidence in the audition room?
I think it's the coldness of it. You know, you're just in a room, the camera on it. I think it's more with self-tapes too now, when you do your own self-tapes. They're trying to make that self-tape look as real as it does when you've got the end result. So.
But you can't, but the end result, the audition room or the self-tape will never look like the end result.
Of course, but it's having that character.
I'm the producer, director, I don't have that lighting equipment, I don't have that, and nobody expects it to. Nobody expects it to look like that. All that we're looking for is how you connected with that role on the camera. You know? There's no way. It's funny. I had this role of an Air Force, a pilot. This woman in her 40s. She's been a pilot for years. She's got a plane that she put together, like with that bits and pieces of other planes, and she's drinking beer and flying that plane. Now, there's the audition scene was her like in a helicopter sitting on the bridge of a ship waiting for the takeoff signal, talking to the captain of the ship, making jokes with him. There's absolutely no way that those actresses could have been in that physical space or environment that they were going to be in. Nor did we expect them to. What we wanted to see was the passion, was the joy of being there, was the ease that this person had with it, even though she knew it's a dangerous mission. That's the keys. Does that correlate to what you're saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. About getting that realism in the room, owning the role. So that's exactly what I was asking. Beautiful.
The realism comes from you. And that's what we expect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. We've got Casey.
Hey, Gary. Question.
I'm looking for you.
My question was, with COVID being as prevalent as it is over there in the States right now, are there any talks or plans of possibly investing and casting, producing more blockbuster films down here in Australia? And also with pandemic conditions in mind, what is the likelihood of Australian actors being cast for jobs over in America right now?
Well, that's a good question. We're just starting back up. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's just starting up. There's a whole bunch of problems with it because there'll be a quarantine period to get into the United States. So it would depend on if you have a visa to get in. And then, so if you didn't, then it would probably, then takes like, at this point, it's probably I would imagine it's at least a 2-month wait to get a visa.
Well, consulates are all closed down, like in Australia, most of them. So it would be impossible unless you've got your visa.
Right. So, because we've started working on something that's going to shoot in Canada, and we're months away from when this would start, and we're already starting to cast, because I mean we're probably starting to cast 3 to 4 months earlier than we would normally cast, because there's going to be a lag to get the people into Canada that we want to get into Canada. So do I think that there's a lot of stuff that's going to go down to Australia? Possibly, very possibly. It all depends on how open Canada is taking people from other countries.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. We've gone a little over. Is that okay, Gary?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, awesome. Then we're
Not exactly like there's a party for me to go to here.
Okay, awesome. Jade has a question.
Hi, Gary. I was just wondering, in terms of your job as a whole, if once casting is kind of done for a show, are you kind of done? Do you stick around for filming? Or you're just kind of out the door once casting is finished?
Well, that's why I love doing episodic television, because you become, I mean, we're always the sort of bastard stepchild, but because we don't have a function on the set. I have no function on the set except to stand there and look stupid. But no, I mean, I go down to a set to just, watch the actors, see how it's going. But most of the crew doesn't know who I am, because we just have, we're off, often we're not even physically near the production anymore because we don't do live auditions. So the last 2 series, I was on one studio lot and they were on another studio lot, miles away. Which is great also because it means I'm not limited just to the people who can come into my office.
Awesome. All right, so we'll go with Jenna.
Okay, hi. I kind of have 2 questions. I hope that's okay. So my first question is, oh no, oh, okay. So I guess my main question really is, So how do you perceive newer actors to the industry? You kind of mentioned that like you casted an Australian guy who had only really done extra work before, but like I live in London and it seems to be like you really need to be with like a top agency or really recognized on like Spotlight to get the attention of casting directors here. So I don't know how maybe you or casting directors in general, kind of how they perceive new talent, and if they're even taken seriously, like to be called into an audition or, and then my second question is like, what is the essence of, or what do you really see, what really makes like an excellent audition? Like, what is it that just makes them really stick in your mind or, yeah.
Right. Okay. So on your first question, so in terms of getting into a casting director's office, it's almost impossible to give you, I mean, my friends there, I mean, casting directors, at least in Los Angeles and New York, we're really good friends. Like I would say a lot of my closest friends are casting directors. Now we compete with each other for jobs, but we support each other too. And now that a lot of the casting directors in the UK are becoming members of the Casting Society, they're beginning to have parties amongst themselves. They're beginning to have more time together. You'll see a change. You'll see a change that casting directors might have a similar kind of thing. But, you know, my partner and I, we don't do things the same way. We don't choose actors from a breakdown the same way. I look for something different. I look for something just because that's my taste and my eye and my, you know, individual who I am. She comes from a completely different place and she interprets roles in a different way. And that's what's so great about us working together, because she'll say, you know, we should really be breeding this person. And I'll go, yeah, you know, you're right. I never would have thought of that, but yeah, that's right. Or I'll say, no way, he's never going to get this part. You know, but there's no patterns to it. It's not like you're going to work and, you know, you're creating menswear where, you know, you follow the trend, the pants get thinner, the pants get baggier, you know, because there's a trend that's going on. It's totally arbitrary. You've chosen the totally arbitrary business. And the thing that you can control is what you do when you get in that room. And how do you get into that room? You know, are you doing theater that some assistant in a casting director's office may go and see and say, go back to their boss and say, you got to meet this actress. You know, you just got to meet this actress. You know, so there's not one way to do it. You have to figure out something that's more than you, and I talk to actors about this all the time, more than you just sitting around relying on your agent. Figure out, you know, fringe festivals. I'll be in a fringe festival because, you know, the casting director may not go, but the associate casting director may go, or the assistant casting director may go. You know, I look for the people who work for me. I'm like, have you seen anybody? Every once in a while, I'll just say, have you seen anybody in anything? Did you see a show or a movie or something? I can't watch everything.
Yeah,
So,
like where someone like stood out to you or something like that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'll tell you, one of the first movies I cast, we could not find the lead role to this movie. It was a rom-com movie. It was Anthony Michael Hall, and I cast Robert Downey Jr. in it because I knew his dad, who was a director, and we got Robert Downey Jr. in it. And Robert was just beginning to like hit. We read, I mean, at that time, because there was no videotaping and sending it across the country, we were shooting in Texas. So after we did our whole search in Los Angeles, Julia Roberts came in twice and didn't get cast in the lead. She wasn't very good. But they sent me down to Texas. I did a search through Texas, didn't see anything in Texas. And then I flew up to New York and I read all of these actresses, like tons and tons of actresses. And a friend of mine who was a manager sent me a headshot of this girl she had just picked up. She was just representing. She was 16 years old. The headshot was this much of her face. It was like a 3/4 face shot. She was initially a model. She was 16. She came over, she read for me. That was it. I mean, she had nothing on her resume. Nothing. She came over, she read to me. I called my producers. There were not cell phones yet. I called my producers in the hotel they were staying in, and I said, I've got one more actress. You have to see her. And they laughed. They said, we hear it. Just bring her over. She read, we talked, we sat and talked for about maybe half an hour, maybe a little bit more. And we all said goodbye. My producer and the director turned to me and said, book her. Uma Thurman.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
It was meant to be.
Yeah. I'm just curious. So what was it that really, stood out maybe in these?
Who knows?
Who knows? Okay.
It's like, it's that gut feeling you get. And actors talk about that all the time too. It's that gut feeling when they're acting a role. I'm sure this has happened to every one of you, where all of a sudden you're in a different place because you have just organically connected with that role, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's that magic that happens, that synthesis of you and the role coming together.
Awesome. Awesome.
But you didn't pick the business where you can check off the boxes and say, this is
No.
it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks, Jenna. Guy? Guy. Oh, where is he? There he is.
Hey, is that better? Yeah, cool. Just got a question, Gary. When you were talking about direction, so it's not really a question about during the casting, but I just had the question about direction when on set. I think you were talking about getting feedback, but what happens if you are getting direction on set and you kind of didn't think it was the best direction? Because sometimes this just happened, but it's more happened on like in indie movies I've done. I suppose it would be different if it was like a blockbuster and you'd probably receive in the best direction ever. But what would happen if you kind of disagreed with that direction, and then you're always kind of like preventing you playing the characters how you kind of believed, and just because it's happened a couple of times, and I've kind of gone along with their direction, and once it's been produced, not only myself or other people actually pick, they'll say, "Oh, I didn't really think that was," and I'll be like, "Exactly, that's what I was saying on the set. That was exactly how I thought." Like, it's sometimes if I don't stick to my guns, then and follow their direction, that it sometimes comes back, and then so I just wondered if you've got any advice regarding that.
Yeah, I do. And again, this is a lesson that I've learned just by being with directors and producers and other actors over the years that I've been doing it. So, it depends on the medium. So television is an executive producer's medium. You're fulfilling the vision of the executive producer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The director is the gun for hire.
Yeah.
That's an very American expression, gun for hire. It comes from the Old West. That's, you hire somebody to go shoot somebody. But so the director, their job is to impart a quality from them, but primarily to make sure the executive producer's vision is seen. Now,
Yeah.
that vision is also the vision of, he's trying to get the executive producer is trying to get his vision in and satisfy what the network has hired that person to do.
Yeah.
Because that's the product that they think they can sell. Okay? So if you come onto the set, and as I said, what the expectation is that you will fulfill the tone, the vision of the people who are telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't give you a lot of leeway, probably in your mind.
Yeah.
But if there's something that, and you have to be smart, you have to also, you have to be sensitive to what's going on around you with other people. Because believe me, I've gotten calls from a director on a set saying, who does this actor think they are, telling me what they think they should be doing?
Yeah.
And I've had the opposite. I once or twice, I've had a producer director that I've worked with and said, God, you get really smart actors. They ask the right questions. And, they made me see things that I didn't see. It's a crapshoot. Use your gut instinct. Be smart and use your gut instinct. I mean, trust me, there are times where I want to go to my executive producer and ask him a question or something. And I'm looking at his face going, I'm not asking him a question. It's like being with my dad. No way, I'm not stepping into that bucket of crap. And I've seen very, very successful actors, and I've seen them go, I'm not going there. So, but ultimately, that is what we are all hired to do. We are all hired to fulfill somebody else's vision.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gary.
Awesome. Thanks, Guy. Morrison?
Hi, Gary. Shalom.
Hello. Oops, sorry. Hold on.
Hi, Gary. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Shalom to you. Thanks for your time today. It's really appreciated. With visas, I'm on my second, what's called an O1 visa. So I'm legally allowed to work in the US. The problem we have is we cannot leave Australia because we've got to get an exit visa, and they're like 1 in a million at the moment. My main question is for casting is networks, is the inclusive diversity system that they've all been introducing. I got cast in Sony Pictures, The Blacklist for 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And with Zoe Rodder. Came down, signed all the paperwork and everything, and when it came down to it, I didn't have a green card, so I lost it. So
that's
it's kind
a problem.
It's not inclusive, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering, is there movements to look at actors just on O1s who do not have green cards?
It would be very hard to, sorry, I lost the visual. It would be very hard to, at this moment, get you into the US without a green card.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, cool. I'm guessing, I'm not, there are lawyers who do this stuff very well, but I'm just guessing it would be tough.
It's right now, like, yes, there are productions that do take O1s, but the bigger ones, it was all from one person who screwed it for a network when his visa expired, but he was booked and he had already shot, and then they had to put him on hold, and then he had to renew. So it was a whole thing. Some people still do, but they make sure that your visa still has quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are those ones that do just say, no, green card only, which sucks.
Yes.
But you've got to sort of, if you don't win the green card lottery, you've got to start with the O1 to then get the green card. So it's like one of those.
Catch-22.
Yeah, yeah.
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 What?
But if you booked something, you can go because you've booked and you've got your visa. So you could fly over, which I know a lot of people have booked over in America currently, and they're still able to fly over, but that's because they've booked something.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's great.
Awesome. But yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Sure.
Awesome.
How do I get back into the?
Did you lose your screen?
Yeah.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a little Zoom button. If you click on that, are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you click on the little Zoom button, we should pop back up. It's like a little camera, blue button. Yeah. Got it?
No, it's not letting me back on. All right, let's keep going.
Emma Snow.
Hello. So my question is, I'm currently at a crossroads where I'm based in Australia, but I'm deciding if I want to either make the jump to moving to the US and doing a bit of study over there, but mostly focusing on my acting, career-wise, or if I go to London and really continue my study and getting my master's degree. But my main question is, do you have any advice for actors who are wanting to make the jump from the Australian industry to the American industry, or just internationally in general? Like, how do you get in front of those new casting directors overseas?
You know, again, it's tough. If you have representation in Australia that has relationships with casting directors, then you know it's going to make it a lot easier.
Plus, that's what our program's for, to help you connect that barrier of we don't know not anyone, to then connecting you with industry professionals, agents, managers, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we started this, because I started from the bottom, knowing absolutely no one, and it took years and years and years and years and years and years. But I don't want people to waste their time or money, you know. So there's no right way. It's just what works for you. Yeah. I think Max had a question as well.
Oh no, I was just complimenting another question there.
Ah, okay, no worries. Noelle?
Hello, I was wondering, you're saying that you're supposed to be acting every day. What should you be doing? Like,
no, you don't have to act every day.
No, like, should you get professional training or just get experience?
Well, look, every once in a while, there's somebody who just has no training and they're brilliant. Acting is a craft. It's an art form. You don't, I mean, there are the rare exceptions who can pick up a paintbrush and paint an amazing painting. But for the most part, you start, you know, sketching circles and squares, and you move on eventually to life drawing, and then you go outside and you start sketching whatever you can, you know, your eye catches on. It's a process. You know, I have a friend who was a professional clarinetist. You know, she didn't start being a professional clarinetist. She studied and studied. You know, she started taking clarinet when she was in 5th grade, and you know, she practiced and moved and went to university for it, and went for her master's in clarinet. and then got into a small orchestra and moved up to a bigger orchestra. It's the same thing with acting. You've got to have the building blocks of acting. You've got to know what you're doing. There's a very, as I think I mentioned this, there's a very, very famous acting teacher named Uta Hagen. And Uta Hagen wrote like the quintessential book on being an actor. Now, it was written probably 45 years ago, so it may seem a little dated, but what's in there really talks about the process of being an actor. You just don't start off, like every once in a while, I'll get somebody who comes into my, who somebody has asked me to see, and they come into my office and they're reading a role and they have absolutely no idea what to do. They don't have, it's not that they're not talented, they don't have the skills.
Yeah.
They don't know how to use their body. They don't know how to use their voice. They don't know how to organically connect themselves to a role.
Yeah.
That all takes study, it takes work, and it's not, and other people on the Zoom, it's not easy, is it? Learning that craft.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cassandra.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. I've got a question, Ari, accents on self-tape. So if you were to reach out to an Australian actor through their agent and they were submitting a tape, obviously you would expect that they would have some American accent training and would submit a tape in that, but would you also like to see something in their natural accent when they're submitting to you?
Other than their slate, no. Not
Yeah.
unless the role called for it.
Yeah. And then in that, if their accent was good but not quite there, is that an inhibitor for you then booking them? Or is it something that you would cast them with the understanding that then they would get the further coaching to make sure that they had that accent on point?
So as with many of the other questions tonight, this is seeking a black and white answer. And we don't work in that business. So many times I will get a tape from somebody who has an accent, but something about, and I know I can't have them, the role is not going to change to have them have an accent. It just can't do that. And by the way, it may not be Australian. It may be, I'm casting something that's taking place in New York and somebody in Atlanta is putting putting themselves on tape and they have a slight Southern accent. I can't, unless they were spectacular, I might go to the producers and directors and say, look, even if they can't get it on their own, we can try hiring a vocal coach to work with them. But if you're auditioning for an American role and you can't do an American accent on a tape, the chances are slimmer that you're going to get, considered for that role. It's just reality.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Gemma has another question.
Hello again.
Hello.
My question was what are the top 3 mistakes that you would see actors do in an audition room? Or just if it's not 3, or just what is the main sort of mistake that when they walk into their room, or is it whether they perform it? Yeah, I guess just some tips regarding that for me, and I guess I'm sure everyone else would like to know as well.
If you had a panel of casting directors, and I've actually sat on a panel of casting directors at the Screen Actors Guild, and that exact question was asked, and we were 5 casting directors and we all gave a different answer.
Okay.
So you know, I'll tell you what the biggest pluses are. You've done your homework. You have a vision of how that role should be done. And you walk in and you're professional, and you know, you say hello, you give your slate, and you get up, and when somebody says rolling, you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you have a question, you ask that question. I will tell you that because many of my friends are casting directors. One of the things that we were talking about last time I was at lunch with like 6 casting directors was, you know, an actor walks in, asks you a question. They ask you another question. They ask you another question. They ask another question. They ask another question. I brought them in to answer the question of how this role should be played.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. Holly.
Hi. I was wondering what the industry's opinion of people with red hair is like. I had there was actually an
No
actress
idea.
living in New York who told me that, oh, your hair is like a personality trait. It'll either be your biggest strength or your biggest weakness, because casting directors will never hire more than one redhead for a movie or a TV show. And I wasn't sure if that was like a factor or a myth.
Who thinks of these things? Oh my God, no, no, there just aren't those kind of rules. I mean, they may say, yeah, I mean, you know what the hard part about redheads is that if I can actually hear this now. If I brought in 2 actresses who were redheaded, or I brought in 2 actors that were redheaded, or we were going to hire a redheaded guy and a redheaded girl, and they were about the same age, then people would be thinking, are they brother and sister? What's the relationship? It would add another element. And because redheads are less prominent in the United States than other hair color types, they might think that way, but you know, I wouldn't worry about it. There are lots of successful redheaded actresses. Nicole Kidman, Julianne Moore. I mean, you know.
Awesome. All right, we'll go with Ashley. Next question.
Hi. I was just wondering, with COVID being so prevalent and the advances with technology and everything, self-tapes are becoming pretty important. Do you think it's essential to get a quality camera? Like, does your judgment change at all when you receive videos that aren't?
I'm so glad you asked this question, because I can give you a pretty easy answer on this. If you have your cell phone actually has a good enough camera, what's important, and so much more important than it was 6 months ago, here's what you need to have to do self-tapes. You need to have a room that's quiet, that's relatively quiet, that's not going to have a lot of background noise in it. You need to have a backdrop that's going to show you well, either blue or dark gray. And here we get them on Amazon. They're like $15, 15 US dollars. They're not expensive. You also have to have good sound. And as I said, using an iPhone actually has the right sound. You may want to invest in a microphone at some point, but it's not 100% necessary. And the person that is reading opposite you has to be decent. And then as far as lighting should be good also. And again, if you're, especially now when most of it's going to be self-taped, I don't know if that's the same in Australia. They have these, you can either buy one of these kits, lighting kits, and they're pretty good. That's what we use in my office. I picked one up. I think I got it, at a camera store. It cost me about $89 US. And it's, got stands and lights, or you can buy one of these circle lamps. And what the circle lamp does is it throws off an even light, and they're really good. And they're about $70 US. But that's an investment that every casting director is telling actors to make these days, because truthfully, we're not going to be in a room with actors, I would imagine, for at least another year and a half. We're doing all of our sessions on an app, on like Zoom, or there's another app that just came out recently. But you need to have a space that makes you look good.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Jade Coletti.
Hi, I was just wondering, when you are posting casting calls, what kind of platforms in general, and I know it might vary depending on what shows or movies you're working on, but like what platforms are you directing your casting calls out to?
Well, I haven't done an open casting call, I would say, in over 20 years. Generally, the US system is called breakdown services, and there's another one called Actors Access. We'll use Actors Access occasionally, but primarily we use the breakdown system. And the breakdown system connects into Spotlight in the UK, and it's national throughout. It covers all of North America, covers all of Canada and the US, and it connects into Spotlight. And then they connect into other services throughout Europe. And then if I'm doing something in Australia, whatever the primary system is, I'm blanking on the name, whatever the primary system is that works down there. Sorry?
Showcast?
Yeah, Showcast. Those are really the primary ones.
Thank you.
Awesome. And we'll take our last question from Leron.
Hi.
Hello.
My question was just how is the connection and the interaction between agents and you when you're casting, for TV show or movie, how does it reach out, or if you reach out to agents that you haven't met before, that aren't really big, does that happen often, or just how does that work? Or international agents as well?
Are you talking about me reaching out to them, or actors?
Or how agencies and casting directors, I guess, in general, how can that happen, have an agency international, how often, or I don't know,
So you're asking
I don't think I'm making sense.
Wait,
sorry.
let me try to help you out here. Are you asking how often I reach out to agencies?
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess. Yeah.
So all the time.
Yeah.
So agents in New York and Los Angeles, many of them are my friends, or I've met them professionally. I've gone to London. I've met, I've done a round of meeting agents so that I have a relationship. There are some agents that I just have an internet connection with, but they're like the first people I'll contact when I have a new role and say, look, is there anybody that you have that has a visa that may be in the United States? Because this is going fast, or if I've got, couple of months to cast something, you know, I'm like, give me the actors, the best actors first, so that I can get them on tape or work with them before they put themselves on tape. You know, I'll do a Zoom call with them and a Skype call with them, and then, you know, I'll read with them, we'll work together, we'll figure out the character together, and then I say, go off and tape it. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of connections to a lot of agents in different parts of the world. You know, just because I've been doing this for a long time and I've searched through many different countries.
Yeah. I guess like also what I meant to say was like, how do also like maybe like agents or like, do you ever get in touch with like, you know, agents that haven't been in your contact lists or like
of course
that you're not? Yeah.
Of course. You know, we use the app IMDb Pro, Internet Movie Database. We have there's a pro version of it for professionals in the entertainment industry. And, you know, I had to do this massive search throughout Latin America and Spain. And I just went on and, you know, found some, you know, read some articles about, you know, hot and up and coming Spanish actors. I looked up who there was their representation. If they didn't have any American representation, I sent an email or placed a call to their agents in Spain or Mexico or Brazil or Argentina. You know?
Yeah. Also, how like often or like what are the chances of like maybe for an actor like without an agent to like get recognized or get like through like, you know, like online sites like Showcast and so like submitting themselves? Or I'm not sure like how like what are the chances? Like is it really essential? Like
it's
I don't know.
I'm not gonna, you know, I'll be really honest, it's tough. It makes it a lot tougher because first of all, you won't hear about the things. I mean, the way that we sort of announce what we're doing is we either send an agent that we have a relationship an email before, I'm sorry, I forgot, before your services that release a breakdown, release them to all the agencies. So I don't know how individuals get those breakdowns, and I don't know what the route for you guys to then contact the casting director.
Yeah.
I think a big thing is having an agency, you know, that you're communicating really well with, and you know, it's also your training. If you're not up that level, then they're not going to submit you. You're not going to be seen. So your training has to be up there, agency, all that sort of stuff. So yeah. But
thank you.
No worries at all. Well, thanks so much, guys, and thanks so much, Gary.
Sure.
This has been great. Gary, he's got a workshop coming up in 2 weeks. So that's where, you know, you would send a headshot, he'll assign a scene, and then he works one-on-one with you with the class observing. It's pretty awesome. Every time he's just, because he sits one-on-one with you, he really, you know, helps you to understand that character. And it's always a pleasure to watch. So if you're interested, we've still got some spots available. Head to our website. That's in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, and use the StarNow5 promo code as well. I'll send the email out with all that information as well. But Gary, always a pleasure.
And same here. This was really fun. Thank you so much, guys. It was really nice to meet all of you, and really great questions. I've got to say, really great questions.
Yep. And it was all related to casting. Sometimes we get some weird questions about, you know, other things, and it's like, it's a casting director. You know, he's not the producer or the director. So thank you guys for keeping it, you know, the questions specifically for Gary, because it makes it so much more enjoyable for everyone else. And yeah, I guess, this industry is always learning. You always got to keep learning, keep up to date with what's happening. If you're not, then, you're going to fall behind. So, a big congratulations to you guys for making it here. Especially for the people in UK, it's in the middle of the morning. So thank you for staying up. For those in Australia, I know it's the weekend. So thank you for staying in for this. And for Gary, I know it's your night time. Thank you for staying up with us.
No, it's not even 9 o'clock.
Oh yeah, because we just had our daylight savings. So
oh,
it's not as so it's so that's another thing, knowing the times. It's been difficult, but for those in the UK, know that we are working on some time changes for you guys in the near future. Awesome. Well, thanks, Gary. If anyone wants to stay on and ask me any questions about anything, about the workshops, Gary's one, any other workshops we've got coming up. We've also got an agent and manager showcase coming up soon. So if you've got any questions, stay on. And if not, I'll send you an email with the links. And then please make sure to subscribe, because after this, you'll hear from us once you've subscribed to our mailing list.
Thank you all.
Gary,
Really a pleasure to work with you.
Gary.
Awesome.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks a lot.
See you, Gary.
Thank you, Nancy, as well. That was great. Thank you.
Very welcome. Very, very welcome, guys.
Thanks, Nancy.
No problem at all, Morrison.
Thank you.